What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Postgame Podcast. I'm here with Cory Smith here inside of lovely Raymond James Stadium in the at the ground level, like just outside of the field. NC State wins a bowl game. Michael Clark, NC State has won a bowl game for the first time since 2017. Comes out, I joked. I made the joke saying that they plundered Memphis's booty in the in the YouTube stream and all this different stuff. But I mean, that's really what they did. You come out, you put up 31 points in the first half. That was the most by any team in Gasparilla Bowl history. And then neither team scores in the second half. But again, 31-7 was the final. NC State wins this one decisively. CJ Bailey, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Caden Fordham, the first ever defensive player to win Gasparilla Bowl MVP. And does that with 13 tackles, an interception, 1.5 tackles for loss. Just, and the defense as a whole, limiting Memphis to barely any yards in the second half. I really haven't added up the number of yards. But again, first bowl win since 2017, snaps a 5-game losing streak, and just showed a lot of heart, man. Like, we've heard so much about bowl opt-outs over the last few weeks and what was going to lead up to, everything going on with bowl season. NC State, obviously, Hollywood Smothers opts out of this game and stays home, decides to enter the portal, and probably going to go look at his NFL draft options. Every other player for NC State at least suited up and played in this game. So just your thoughts on this game before we really jump into things, man.
Well, it says a lot, I think, about, we've been critical of Dave Dorn, and I know fans have been upset at times about the buy-in there is in this program for, first of all, guys to play in this game. And this is not just this bowl specific, Cory. There's not much to gain from these bowls. I think we are both in the agreement it's becoming almost obsolete, and bowl games are in real danger. And here you are, you've got your guys, Justin Jolie playing, Brandon Cleveland. I mean, you go down the list of all the guys who have NFL aspirations, and they went out there and played. And, NC State set the tone from the beginning, was very encouraged to score on the first drive. I like the offensive approach in the first half. I think my notes are right. Bailey had 9 completions of 15 yards or more. Yeah, that's the type of stuff I think NC State fans want to see. The downfield passing attack, the talent, and he didn't have his best game. He missed a handful of throws probably again, but the talent just jumps off the screen. I mean, it's some of the throws he makes, some of the arm angles. I mean, goes over 3,000 yards passing for the season. I
believe he's the first sophomore to ever. I think that's the most passing yards by a sophomore in NC State history. Granted, Phillip Rivers passed for more as a freshman, but or passed for over 3,000 yards as a freshman. But I believe that's the second most, or the most in NC State history by a sophomore.
Yeah, and I think it's encouraging, since the Miami game, the last 3 games of the season did not throw interceptions, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Were the numbers gaudy at times? No, not really, but they don't need to be. I think you're starting to see some the maturation process is starting to speed up a little bit for him. Still has some things to work on. But again, I think if you look at this objectively, do you treat this as like a first-year starter type deal? He was not in any stretch expected to play last year. It was just, hey, we don't have a choice. Go out there and do your best. Well, this year he really, had some tough games. We got to be honest. Didn't play well at times, but I think you would sign up for 25 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Or most teams across the country would probably sign up for those numbers. And again, there's so much left for him. He's not even close physically. I mean, he's got, so much more growth. I mean, and I wrote this down. So 9th, good for 9th and tied for 7th single season wise in NC State program history. That was the passing yardage is 9th best total in a single season. The 25 touchdowns is tied for 7th most in a single season by an NC State quarterback. I mean, all things considered, not bad. Again, there is room for improvement, but I think it goes without saying, you got to find a way to re-sign him and build off of this.
Yeah, and that was kind of my last point in my takeaways was, I highlighted CJ Bailey and the offense as a whole in the first half, and I highlighted Caden Fordham and what he did like I said beforehand, first ever defensive player to win overall MVP in the Gasparilla Bowl. So again, a great accomplishment for him. And we'll talk about his career and what he meant to this team this year in just a second. But, CJ Bailey in this game, like the thing about it is when you look back on what he was able to do in this one, I'm wondering too, how much like the 31 touchdowns would account for too, in terms of where that puts him in program history in a single season as well, because he had 6 rushing touchdowns, including 1 today. Will Wilson, 10 rushing touchdowns this season, which tied him with Phillip Rivers for the second most, Phillip Rivers is a surprising name to hear for rushing touchdowns, but tied him with Phillip Rivers for the second most rushing touchdowns in NC State history in a single season. So, but let's take a step back before we jump into things. Really, I want to remind our listeners, as always, visit our iTunes, Google Play Store, anywhere that you get the podcast, including Spotify. Check out our new channels that we posted. We try to post them every single time in the podcast stories that we put out. So there are all the links in there. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to hit like, subscribe, hit get notifications. This is our new YouTube channel. It's easy for me to say. So you can jump in with us each and every single time we go live, and post-game podcast, pre-game podcast, everything along those lines too. And then lastly, still through the month of December, again, guys, you got 6 days until Christmas. I know Hanukkah's going on. There's a lot of different holidays happening right now. If you're looking for the perfect gift for the NC State fan in your life, 50% off for a brand new Pack Pride subscription. So do make sure that you check that out. Get not only the NC State coverage, all the NC State VIP content you can get. And it's a pretty important season to start getting it. We're talking about CJ Bailey, trying to retain him. We're talking about other players and trying to retain them going into next season. That is going to be the important aspect here for NC State. And that's kind of what I was getting to earlier, that to me is the third aspect of all of this. Is like you've got all these great things going on. In order for this to truly carry over, now you have to have the retention. Now you have to go out and go get go acquire players as well. And then, at the same time, know what you're losing and be able to identify that and go out there and go get those players. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's start. I really wanted to start on the defensive side of the football. Caden Fordham, just a remarkable season for him. And we've talked about it a couple times. Early on in the season, there was a lot of
it wasn't good.
Him kind of having to get better. There was still a lot of tackles, but there was a lot left on the table. You did not see that as much in the second half of the season. He improved significantly as a linebacker, as a leader, and needing to step up because of the fact that you lost several players. You really saw him step into that role. 143 tackles this season. I don't know where that puts him in NC State history. I'll have to look that up in just a second. But it does lead all Power 4 linebackers in the entire country. His 130 during the regular season led all linebackers, any player, defensive player in Power 4 across the country. Don't know where that's going to finish with the college football playoff and everything still going on. But just your thoughts on his performance today. 13 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. Did end up with another interception. He talked about it, ran out of gas, and wanted to be able to get to the end zone on that one, but ends up with getting to the 2-yard line and setting up another touchdown for NC State.
Yeah, I always talk on these podcasts and in stories, and you do as well, about our job. We have to be critical when things are bad, and we have to be fair at the same time. And first of all, the kid deserves a ton of credit for coming back from the injury as quickly as he did. I mean, he could have easily waited till midseason, a year removed. Instead, he comes back less than 9 months off the knee injury, plays, every game, struggles early, which was somewhat to be expected. But he really came on strong at the end, and it says a lot about him, not only as a football player, but as a person. Comes from a great family. I mean, just a tremendous end to his career. Happy for him. And I just think it is important for us always on these podcasts to be fair, and we have to be fair with how he started to how he finished. He deserves a ton of credit. It was an outstanding performance by him. Again, I said it, and I'll say it again. Caden Fordham is everything that is right about college football. Mm-hmm. In a time of chaos, and you look around and you're like, what is going on? He is going to be successful in whatever he chooses to do in life, whether that is play football at the next level, at some professional level, whatever. Caden Fordham is a great kid and, just had a, tremendous season and deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah. And, I asked him after the game, I said, what was the motivation for you playing in this game? Because, you've already kind of put everything out there on the table. You've had 130 tackles this year. You've done everything. And, how rewarding was it to win MVP? And his first, response was, I never even thought about not playing in this game because it's that important to suit up with, my brothers and go out there and do the right thing by this team. And, that's not to say that other people that opt out aren't doing it for the right reasons. There's some people you worry about the risk of injury, and he had every reason to do that. He's literally coming back from a season-ending injury last year. If you go out there on the very first play, he gets tripped up and, messes up his ankle or tears his ACL again or something like that. Like that's a life-altering, injury that could completely change the trajectory of your career. But he still went out there, fought for his team, and it's really commendable to see what he's been able to do this season and represented the number 1 jersey the right way too. Michael, to go back to what you were saying about
refreshing
everything that's right about college football.
It is refreshing right now because we're in a chaotic time, and in about 2 weeks the doors are going to come off when this portal opens, and nobody's looking forward to it. I don't even know if the people who are entering the portal outside the financial gains, are they really looking forward to this process? Is a fair question to ask on another podcast. Probably not.
Yeah. No, I got you. And I wanted to go back over to the offensive side of the football. We talked about CJ Bailey earlier. Obviously for guys like Wesley Grimes, this is his final game. Justin Jolie, his final game. They come down with a combined 5 receptions, 48 yards for Wesley Grimes, and then 21 yards for Justin Jolie. So, tip of the cap to both of them for, outstanding careers and what they were able to do for NC State. I know Justin Jolie really wanted to get over the 2,000-yard mark in his career, wasn't quite able to do that. 21 yards in this game would have needed a little bit of over 40, I believe, total. But, you also saw glimpses of some of the young players that have a chance in the future. Noah Rogers, if he returns, 2 receptions for 37 yards, some really big glimpses of what he could be. Teddy Hoffman, 1 reception, but it was for 40 yards, breaks away, gets a touchdown inside of his home state. And then, a couple others. If Dante Daniels does return next season, which there's a chance that he could emerge as a line or a tight end to watch for NC State after, the 1 reception, 22 yards. He's done that a couple times this season where he's had big plays. Just your thoughts on the receiving game for NC State too.
Yeah, 10 different players caught passes. To me, not to take this back to CJ Bailey, but that shows he's seeing the field well. He doesn't really zone in on anybody. I don't believe this group was as good collectively as everybody thought they were at the beginning of the season.
Us included.
Yeah. And it was a good, solid group, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Made plays today, and they deserve credit for that. I think that there are a lot of positives. When you talk about Teddy Hoffman, potentially Noah Rogers, obviously Terrell Anderson on the outside is priority number 1. Didn't have a huge game today, but, everybody you talk to, he's the top priority to keep on the outside. And I don't think it's particularly close. I do think they deserve credit for making plays. You talk about 9 plays of 15 yards or more. That says that you're getting separation. You're finding ways to get open. And if we're being really honest, Cory, I think down the stretch at times, the second half, midway through the season, and as the competition ramped up, that was an issue. It was not all on CJ Bailey. Everybody always bangs on him. He was at fault. But, when the competition got tougher, that unit collectively, I talk about them all together, struggled to consistently get open. They did not tonight. Made plays, and they deserve credit. I do think going forward, NC State, it's a sneaky place that NC State needs to address in the portal. You've got to get better there. I think that you've got some really nice pieces, but it would be beneficial, in my opinion, for them to add a proven playmaker or 2 on the outside that can come in and post numbers for you next year. Yeah,
it's funny. We were talking midway through the season about what NC State really needed to address. Their first field goal attempted in the last, I believe, 4 games. Last time they attempted a field goal was against Georgia Tech. Kanoa Vine said, shout out to him for Shout out to him for the 51-yarder. Maybe we're not putting him on the hands team just yet as far as the fake field goal, and I don't think that was a very smart play to run there in general. But again, a big game.
Fair question, though, not to cut you off. Had he called it, I don't know how that would have ended for him. Probably not particularly well.
Yeah.
You have to think in the back of his mind. I'm not saying he was thinking of that, but
yeah,
I
think the original target was down the field. I didn't see who it was, but ended up being covered, and that led to them having to kind of dump it off to Kanoa Vineset. I think Lex Thomas was like, "I'm not about to take a hit, so I'm going to throw it," and he just dropped it. So. But look, I'm not going to harp on that.
Neither one of them wanted to take a hit. It looked like to me. So.
Yeah, exactly. One other guy I wanted to highlight too. I mean, we talked about him a couple times. Duke Scott in this game. The numbers weren't huge outside of really one. I think it was the one gain for 35 yards. Really, everything else was. He had one other explosive run, two other explosive runs. One of 17, one of 12, and the other one was the 35-yarder. But really outside of that, he was kind of kept in check in this game, but still finished with 19 attempts, 108 yards total in this game. He's not going to really be quite the pass catching option on a continuous basis that you get from Hollywood Smothers. But just your thoughts on his performance tonight and what we saw from him stepping up in this role.
Yeah, totally different type of running back.
A
punishing running back. And I think he punished them tonight. Even the 4 and 5 yard gains, the ability to lower the shoulder and just push the pile forward. I mean, it was those short gains. I mean, he's still really. I kind of saw towards the end. I think they got kind of tired of hitting him because he was really tough, and he has shown a lot this season when given the opportunity. I think you're comfortable going into next year as your top running back. That's assuming you can retain him. I say that with everybody because we don't know how things are going to go. The biggest question I have now is, okay, you know what you have with him. Is there somebody else on the roster that can give you a 1-2 punch, or do you have to go to the portal and get somebody else, maybe a speed guy? I don't know. That's to be determined. But again, and another phenomenal kid too. So what a representative of the university. I mean, incredibly smart, humble, just great self-awareness for a young guy that he has, and just a really likable person. So pulling for him, and it was good to see him step in. You knew the moment wasn't going to be too big for him, especially after what you saw against Georgia Tech. So again, good performance by him. Couple of long runs, but I was more so impressed with his ability to turn, those 1 and 2 yard runs into 5 and 6 yard runs just with the leg drive and the strength.
Yeah, and one other aspect I'll throw out there too. I mean, is that player on the roster? Is there another change of pace back on the roster? A guy that can be explosive runner. DeAndre Desinor, we didn't see him at all this season. The former 4-star running back, flipped from West Virginia over to NC State. At the very last minute back in the spring, is he ultimately the guy we'll see? If a Jonathan Paylor, if he's fully healthy, does he become kind of that explosive secondary back for NC State going into next season? Or does he maybe move to the slot receiver position he's fully healthy? I actually saw him on the field pregame, and he said he's almost fully recovered, expecting to come back to the spring, and did at this time say he's expecting to come back to NC State. So we will see ultimately what that holds. But again, that's another guy that I think people have forgotten about, but can be another big explosive back too for NC State.
Yeah, and the talent is there, unfortunately for him, and he was really starting to turn the corner before he got injured by all accounts. So obviously pulling for him. I say this as I will because I'm in my takeaways about how this is one of the most important off seasons in NC State football history with what is on the line. Over the next 5 to 6 years, call a spade, teams are positioning themselves for the next expansion whenever that happens, of trying to position yourself to get into the Big Ten or the SEC. I know that's hard for people to hear, but that's the way this thing is going to go. I think everybody agrees that, unfortunately, the ACCs, or the ACC that we know, the days are numbered. So if you're NC State, you cannot afford to have a down year. You need to be as competitive as possible, and if you can take another step, it makes you that much more marketable in the eyes of these powers that be. And so that said, you've got to be short running back. if you have any questions, you know what you have in Duke Scott. Are you sure that you have somebody that can be that complementary back or even an equal to Duke Scott? Obviously a different type of runner. Incredibly important for NC State. A lot of decisions have to be made, and fair, unfair state, just the margin for error this offseason when it comes to personnel is very thin.
Yeah. And, one of the things, too, that you've got to focus on as well is going to be the defensive side of the football. We'll kind of go over – let's talk about the defense here in this game for NC State, too. Obviously, you're losing Caden Fordham. You lose Kenny Soares after this year, too, Devon Marshall. And those are your top three tacklers in this game. Those three combined for 33 tackles. Obviously, Devon Marshall, an insane finish to the season, finishes with 16 pass breakups on the year. Kenny Soares, 1 QB hit, 1 tackle for loss, 12 tackles in this game. Not to be overlooked, obviously, Caden Fordham, a great game for him. And Kenny Soares, kind of fits the mold of what we were talking about with Caden Fordham earlier on the year. If he made all the tackles that he missed at times, it would be a remarkable number for him. But just your thoughts on the defense as a whole and kind of where this team needs to go after this offseason heading into next year on the defensive side, too.
As bad as they were early and midway through the year, you've got to, again, be fair. I mean, this is a team that gave up 4 touchdowns in the total in the final 3 games.
Yeah.
And it's cool and nice to see. I don't know the best way for a guy like DJ Elliott, given what he went through this year. I mean, one of the feel-good stories of the year. And being a dad, you're a dad. I mean, I can't even fathom it.
No.
But, really think he squeezed the most out of what he had, because in a nice way, you were short from a talent level defensively, collectively. I think everybody who watched NC State, even if you saw one game, you noticed that there was a shortage of talent on all 3 levels of this defense. Now, it didn't help with all the injuries. I get that. But even when, at the beginning of the season, we, talked behind the scenes all the time that this is not where the talent level has to be to compete for the ACC championship or to be an upper-tier team in the ACC. That was pretty clear. Yeah. So, again, Elliott and his whole staff deserve a ton of credit, not necessarily for how you started, but how you finished, just continuing to get better. And just playing for each other. You can tell that's what they did. I mean, these guys sold out in this last game, gave everything they had, played. I mean, Caden Fordham, we talked about him, and you mentioned Kenny Soares. You get down the list, Devon Marshall was phenomenal down the stretch. All of them deserve a ton of credit. With all that in the rearview mirror now, it is imperative to upgrade the talent level on the defense significantly. It needs to look nothing like it looked this year, next year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. And I think, again, I love what you said. I mean, if you're going to keep DJ Elliott, I think there's good reason to, because of the way that, they were able to get going once especially, it's not just the fact that they were able to finish strong down the stretch, but once you got your personnel right, once you got things figured out, there was obviously a bunch of injuries, and there was obviously still some question marks about guys late down the season, but they were able to step up, and the scheme worked once you had guys ready to go and things along those lines. So I think it just, again, you saw it kind of finish strong, and I think there's reason to have, still have some concern because of the way that they performed against better teams, but the schedule also shapes up for them to have a chance next season too.
Yeah. And I'm always going to be critical of coaches when we think things are not going particularly well, but at some point it comes down to players, and great players make great coaches. And in DJ Elliott's defense, he was hired and assigned with this defense, probably recruited maybe 1 or 2 of these players, a handful of them, because he got here so late, and those were portal guys. There was not enough on this defense to blame him significantly for the struggles. I don't think that the horsepower was clearly not there. And did I think he had a great year start to finish? No. But that being said, it would be interesting to see, again, obviously Dave Dorn's coming back, so it makes sense to keep your coordinators in place just for the continuity. I don't think it's not, the risk is not worth it at this point. All that said, give DJ Elliott better, more explosive defensive players, more dynamic playmakers, and see what he can do. I think first-year coordinators oftentimes get judged too harshly. And in this sense, you had a first-year coordinator who was going into a situation where you're limited personnel-wise, extremely limited, and then you're hampered by injuries. All these things are out of his control. Again, does he deserve some blame for the struggle? Sure, but I think he can, build off this bowl game and the success they had down the stretch. And now he can go into the portal with a year behind him and get the type of players, the body types, what he's looking for that he feels can take his scheme to the next level.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to point out too, by the way, just got a text while we're on this that pointed out the fact that Kenny Sewers actually, while a senior, has only played 3 years at the college level, so technically does have another year, can return to NC State. Looks like he potentially will. So that there's a lot of other young guys that we didn't really talk about. Obviously Chris Bond in this season, Josiah Victor, Chase Bond. I apologize, Chase Bond, and obviously Josiah Victor, who came down with the fumble recovery today. Joseph Adidere as well, that had a really strong finish to the season once he was healthy. And he actually, I believe, forced that fumble I keep wanting to say Chase Bond, that Josiah Victor recovered as well. So there's a lot of different faces that could step up into these roles next season. You still have to go out in the portal and go find some guys that really fit this system too. And I think it's going to be easier now that you've shown what the linebacker position can do, the kind of production and potentially, what Caden Fordham's draft stock looks like after the season, after missing most of last year. So that certainly will help you too when it comes to recruiting, and we'll see ultimately what that does. All right, before we wrap this thing up, just your thoughts on what this bowl win does for NC State, number one, heading into the offseason, creating momentum. And then, second of all, what they need to do, what they truly need to do this offseason to be able to retain the talent and also try to build towards next season. Because as we've talked about, we'll talk about it plenty, I'm sure, this offseason on future podcasts, but it does shape up pretty well for NC State. The schedule changed.
No, absolutely.
You only have 3 true road games, 2 if you include going to Chapel Hill where they've won multiple times straight. And then, one of those games, one of those road games in Brazil against Virginia, you swap a game at Virginia Tech with the home game against Syracuse now. Like, it's shaping up for NC State to put together a special season. What are they going to have to do to truly build towards that now?
I think the obvious one is keep the quarterback. I know some people are split on that, and I think that's crazy to even think about because he's considered by many a top 10 returning quarterback in college football next year. And of all those players, how many of those we don't watch them as close, obviously, as others because we're focused on state. How many of those have the upside that CJ has?
Yeah.
Not many. I think
you believe that he will. There's a few that they believe will have more upside, but they just haven't proven it yet. And I think CJ is more of a proven commodity already at this point.
I think CJ, a big thing watching him tonight is he's gotten so much stronger since he's been in the strength and conditioning program. But there are times in a game where I'm like, man, he could really benefit from another year in state strength and conditioning program. Maybe next year instead of 215, he's 230. I think that is something we probably haven't discussed enough. Again, has a great arm, but just the physicality of the college game, the pass rush, avoiding things. I think him continuing to get bigger and stronger is going to go a long way. Obviously, the other parts, the pocket presence, the decision-making, those have to improve at times. But again, I go back to the quarterback always gets all the blame and all the credit. So NC State was not where it needed to be personnel-wise throughout the roster to be a top-tier ACC team this year. They just weren't. And I think, most would agree. You've got to retain him. I said this in my post-game takeaway spoiler alert, 40% minimum you spend of your whole budget needs to go to the offensive and defensive lines. You need to be as good as you can on both sides of the ball. We saw when they were manhandled this year what happened. It was Miami, it was Notre Dame. Are you going to be able to spend as much as those programs? Probably not. But you have to at least be competitive in the trenches, and they were not. in those games. It wasn't even close. So as excited as people got a couple of years ago about all those shiny skill players, I've come around, throw that out the window. You go to the portal, first of all. You'd like to re-sign Jacarius Peak. That's probably priority number one. Obviously, you want Spike back. And drawing a blank right now. Teague Anderson, sorry. Retain him. I'd love to see State invest heavily, and this isn't typical heavily in big-time guards. I really think that would go a long way towards shoring up the middle and making it much easier on C.J. Bailey. Then you go over to the defensive side of the ball. You've got to be really good up front. I mean, I don't expect Mario Williams, Manny Lawson type, but you need to have one of the better defensive lines you've had in a long time. You've got to get a pass rusher, and your linebacker play from start to finish probably has to be better. But again, you work up front, back. And then I'm convinced you could find running backs, receivers, and even defensive backs in the portal because there's going to be so many guys. You cannot easily find offensive and defensive linemen. You're probably going to have to overpay for some guys. There's going to be some guys getting 7 figures, multiple guys probably. Is it crazy to some? Maybe. It's the way it is. Deal with it, pay them, and compete next year.
Yeah, well, NC State will be, allocating its funds. Men's basketball, the men's basketball will get $4 million next year. Football, as we've said multiple times, $13.5 million will be going to the football team. So again, and it'll be allocated in different ways too. But that's just, $13.5 million is a starting point. That's where
you need to be. Yeah. A lot more than that. And the question is, and we don't know how close can State get to I think the optimal number will be $25 million. I don't think that's going to happen, but you need to be as close as you can to be competitive. And if you're not, it's just going to be really, really hard.
Yeah, I agree. And my computer's about to die, so I've got to roll. And we've got to head out because actually we're driving back tonight because we are both Spencer and I. Shout out to Spencer. We've got a ton of photos from him that we'll share. But we both got family obligations tomorrow, so we need to be home. But I appreciate everybody for jumping on. We'll have much more content from this game. Plenty more podcasts in the coming days, weeks, and plenty of content over on Pack Pride. Please make sure that you check out the website. Go over to packpride.com to find out more about becoming a premium subscriber. Michael, I appreciate you as always for jumping on, man.
Yeah, last thing. Thank y'all all for following along, supporting us, guys. We appreciate it more than you know.
Yes, sir. I second that. I thank you guys for following along the season. It hasn't always been easy, but we appreciate you guys following our coverage. We will have much more from this game, but for now, we will talk to you guys again.